Squeak, 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 squeak.
Dup, da, dup, da, dup, da.
And boop. Hello, everyone, and welcome to kind of the next episode of the Foally of Man.
Kind of the last episode of season 1 of the Foally of Man.
Yeah,
The
it's kind
Foally
of
of the Man.
there's a little wrap up, not winter wrap up because we're headed headlong into summer
And babies.
and babies.
For those of you who've never joined us before, there's a lot of episodes to catch up on, but the crux of the show on the Foally of Man is that Chris here is a brony.
How dare you?
I'm not a brony. And hey, Knock Lupus, I'm not a brony. And we review the fan fiction Fallout Equestria, written by K-Cat, that combines My Little Pony and Fallout.
And the gist of it is that because I'm a brony and he's not, we get to see it from the perspective of somebody who's not really that familiar with Pony, to see if the story holds up, if there's any kind of missing parts, if there's anything that kind of falls through the cracks.
So this is our Have a Beer wrap-up show. Hey, why did 666? How we doing? How dare you? 7 years bad luck.
I think it's if I kill it and without.
So, where to begin? Where to begin?
So as we finished the last episode,
It was a summer's eve.
Little Pip had accomplished her goal.
Yeah.
She had become one with the Single Pony Project, or they were still calling it the Single Pegasus Project. And that's where the story ended.
Yep.
Right at the end.
it should be known we left off at the last chapter without following through with the epilogue or the aftermath, and that's what we're doing now.
Yes. So we'll cover the epilogue first. The epilogue is told from the perspective of DJ Pawn 3.
As an audio recording of one of her radio casts.
Yes, and 2 weeks after the aftermath of Pip taking control of the Single Pegasus Project, which is described as all of the towers coming to life and sonic rain booms all over the wasteland, opening the heavens, what they called the day of sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
It's the penultimate. It is the day in history that changes them forever, just like the day the bombs were dropped.
Yeah.
And just the calamity that ensued. Basically, Red Eye's factions, essentially the Enclave were defeated. Now, fuck it, our skies are gone.
Yeah.
We have no cloud protection. And now we need to come back. It's kind of part of their retreat when the clouds are destroyed. They realize that something very bad has happened.
Oh yeah. I mean, the second that your entire communication system, your structure, and pretty much all your governance just ends up going, we don't know.
Yeah. And remember, the Enclave is full, or rather the cloud, because not everybody's Enclave that are Pegasi. The Pegasi have good citizens.
Yeah.
There are good people there that don't know what's going on below. But with the destruction of the cloud cover, the Pegasi are forced to make peace because they need food.
Yep.
They will not be able to feed themselves without the clouds.
No.
Now, supposedly Pip was trying to design it so that they'd retain some clouds and food, but it's going to end that. Now, what we also find out is that Red Eye's factions have broken apart into what you'd call tribes. Different warring factions is what they call them, but essentially they're like the tribes from New Vegas.
Yeah.
Roaming gangs, but they're not raiders. They're Red Eye's forces, but they're broken apart.
Yeah. You have a military force that has no clear command structure. You just kind of go with whoever. Think of it as the end of, what was it, Genghis Khan and his children?
Yes.
How his empire broke up into 3 parts for his sons.
Yeah, it was really under the reign of the third Khan, Kublai Khan, his grandson, that there were issues. Although saying grandson, by God, Genghis Khan laid more pipe than the Mario brothers.
Yeah.
So what am I forgetting? And then in the recording, Velvet Remedy joins DJ Pony.
Yep, to talk about everything. And she was there to kind of clear up some possible misunderstandings, because you have all this stuff happen all at once, and there's no official statement from anywhere as to what the hell's going on.
Well, and what do? You let the most charismatic person be your PR person. And isn't, if I remember correctly, Velvet is taking over for DJ Pony on the radio broadcast to some extent?
Yeah. 1/20th humans are descendants of The Great Khan, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mostly Russians and Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, last place. You're the last one here. At least for now.
I mean, if somebody else comes on, then you'll have to change your name.
Yeah. Second to last place. Third to last
Nobody
place.
wants that.
Oh, God. If anybody was like Smliff and created a second to last place as a clone account.
Oh, no.
I'm going to start that one right now.
Please now. And then, so that's the epilogue. Now, if I remember correctly from KCAT, the aftermath was actually a fan-driven addition to the book.
Of course,
it's apparently going to be done at the epilogue, and then the fans were like, "Okay, you've left way too many questions unanswered. We have to get a little more finality.
A lot of strings untied.
We have to get a little more finality to what the hell's going on."
So, and on that note, with the actual epilogue, with the aftermath, it's told from the perspective of how many years later? 5 or 7 years later? 7 years later?
I think it's 5.
It's something like that. But I should say that I can understand why the fans would push her, because it does feel a little fan servicey.
Yeah.
The chapter very much feels like, and pardon the literary comparison, but the last chapter of the last book of Harry Potter, which that chapter kind of reads like a fan fiction because everybody's married and everybody has kids and they all go to school together. And that's absolutely what this chapter is. And it's not that there aren't losses, but it fleshes out that there was a great battle that occurred to protect the Gek, and that we lost Paladin Strawberry Lemonade.
Yeah, in
that fight. We also find out in the first couple of minutes that
Ensign Strawberry Lemonade with the red shirt.
Well, actually, that we find out that Silverbell is a Paladin, or is it Paladin? Yeah, Paladin, right? I think it's Paladin.
I'm trying to remember.
Paladin Silverbell. I seem to remember that coming across. But yes, the little Silverbell that we remember is moved on. The warring between Applejack's Rangers and the Brotherhood of Steel has ceased, other than a few skirmishes here and there, but basically everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
And we are hearing the story now from the perspective of Fluttershy.
Yep.
And the first clue is in reference to the tree.
Yeah.
Fluttershy is working at a school with the what do you call them? Worshippers of the Apocalypse.
Followers of the
Apocalypse. Run by Velvet Remedy, and she is reading the story of Little Pip. So basically the memory dump that Little Pip did has been transcribed into novel form, and she's reading it to the children. And has apparently done this multiple times with different classes, because she talks about, and here's the quiet silence before they say, "What was it like being a tree?" Yeah. And you get the sensation that Fluttershy, from 200 years of torture, is a little shell-shocked.
Yeah, they describe in the chapter that bringing her around at first, she was just she didn't have any kind of emotional response at all to anything anyone was doing. And it kind of took some people to just kind of baby her, to bring her around to even communicating and even kind of recognizing what was going on. And
we even see a conversation later on that she's remembering, about a conversation between her and Spike. And there's a note on, he appears and for the longest time she was afraid of him.
Yeah.
And he was very nervous about this because he didn't want to scare her. An old friend. But one of the things she notes on is that she had seen him full grown once before, but it was an abnormal growth.
Yeah.
So I assume in the show, once he gets popped up into giant size.
Yes.
But a wingless version, apparently.
Yes. It was a premature adolescent growth, spurned on by, I don't exactly know how the hell it's supposed to work. And I don't even think the show does a very good job of explaining what the fuck actually happened. But his adolescence and his maturity was spurned by his greed. And so at the beginning of the episode, he gives up this fantastic ruby heart looking, I guess it's actually called a ruby heart, to Rarity, who he totally is kind of like has this infatuation with throughout the show. And a little into the episode, people start giving him things, and he starts getting a little greedy, and he starts taking things. And as he does, he starts this premature growth spurt and becomes a full-size dragon that's just got kind of like this mind of an infant, effectively. I don't exactly know how that's supposed to work, but it's when he takes Rarity, and they have this one scene where he's King Kong, and he's got the damsel.
Oh, of course.
The Wonder Bolts are flying around like the planes, and he swats them out of the air. But it's when Rarity shows him the crystal, the ruby heart, that he finally remembers that he was generous at one time, and he shrinks back to a dragon. I'm like, the more I think about that, the less sense it really makes. Universe dragons grow with the size of their hoard and or greed. Getting greedy makes him bigger, like the Hulk, except it doesn't rage. Yeah, I'm just really confused about the physiology of that action.
Hey, it's the MacGuffinite dragon magic.
Because I mean, isn't the whatever her name is, Ember? Isn't she technically a little greedy? And Spike, and so shouldn't she have some kind of size to her? And it just doesn't. I feel like it was just there for that episode.
So is it possible to make a dragon small again if you steal their hoard, or is it?
I think if you stop them from being greedy by showing that they should be generous, their generosity makes them... Again, I'm not going to focus on this because it makes no damn sense.
Yeah, we need a ruling. We need better people than us to make a ruling on that. I am certainly not an authority on that.
Okay. I'd have to see that episode.
But anyways, there's an interesting comment on, when he surprises her, he says, "It's the eye patch. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." And Fluttershy's like, "Well, no, actually, the eye patch actually makes you look kind of dapper."
Yeah.
But it's a reminder that, of course, he did take some serious damage.
Yeah.
Nakalupus says, "Well, kids show and all can only expect so much consistency." Yes, but it's made by adults. And
you can actually expect more. You can actually expect more. I didn't say you should expect more, but it's not like there isn't room for consistency's sake.
Yeah,
there's rooms there. You just gotta have people care.
It's very possible. And also being said, it's kind of hard to think about it being a kid's show after what we've experienced through reading this book.
Yep.
Because it's very adult.
Yeah.
I would never share this with my children, at least until they were old enough.
Mm-hmm. Thundercats and Silverhawks, yeah. They could have been androids. Okay, moving on. We talk a little bit as well about, and I'm skipping around a little bit, about how Pip and Homage have kind of gotten back together a little bit in a way.
Yeah, they said that some tech minds have figured out there's like a suite in the tower that allows Pip to actually leave the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but the problem is that she pretty much has to stay there, because it'll be generations before anyone really trusts the Pegasi with the weather again.
Yep.
It's been 200 years. Why would they suddenly trust them now? They did some really fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing to take in consideration is that Pip's body is permanently damaged from the broadcasters and the pink.
Oh, yeah. And just everything she went through. All the bullet wounds and all
the
this.
PTSD, everything.
Yeah, she's completely and totally broken as an individual, psychologically, physically. There's a point brought up by somebody else where she is, I think we talked about this before, she's functionally immortal.
Yeah, she's like Mr. House.
Yeah, she's functionally immortal in that she can live forever if no one kills her, but she's very easily killed.
Yes.
So she's kind of become a static position in the world.
Like I said, the last part of this book takes on a lot of New Vegas. Takes from a lot of quite a bit of New Vegas. But anyways, so we get that, and so there's some respite for Pip. But there's also allusions to three ways with Celestia and weird crap like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was just kind of like a poking of fun, as is common in the later part of the book. But how it's described is Homage visits Pip by burning herself in Spike's fire once a year.
Ooh.
I thought about this a while back. How I wonder if Homage is doing this as her own redemption, feeling guilt for what happened to Pip. Because, I mean, in part, she was responsible for Pip going into Philadelphia the first time.
Yeah.
And a lot of this centralizes about what happened to Homage.
Yeah.
and she didn't have an opportunity to be at the cave personally. Even if it is simply by her own actions or whether or not she could have gotten away and just didn't, but she wasn't there. And so anyone who cares enough is going to probably feel guilty about that and put it on themselves, because you kind of have to ask, what did I do? What was my position in all of this? And so she probably feels a little bit of personal responsibility.
We should also say we find out that the elements of harmony were used again, and that the wasteland has been returned to normal.
Yeah.
So there are still people who've been affected by the world before, and there are still pockets of radiation far off outside of Equestria. But other than that, the earth is cleansed. The skies are cleansed. The water is cleansed. The Gek did exactly what it was supposed to. Exactly what it was supposed to. And they've even, the other thing is that the elements have changed shape. And they've taken on a new form. So, for instance, Velvet Remedy has a golden pip-buck that her element had. But we also find out
Velvet had to get stuck with a pip-buck.
She did.
Suck a dick.
Yes. She was trying to get away from it.
Didn't you know, Velvet, the pip-buck was inside you all along?
Broke my chain
Calamity has...
He's a cyber pony. So he has a replacement wing. And I think there were mentions of some other bits here or there. He still has his normal vision. But the thing is that, so while Pip got in, there was still fighting and great sacrifice. And what we find out is that Calamity overstressed his wing to the point that he needed a brand new one from the fighting at the cave. I can't remember what they called that battle. But anyways, the bearers of the elements of harmony. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Velvet also gifted her set, the complete set of the Ministry Mares, the Ministry Mare statuettes, to Fluttershy. To have her friends with her. And she states that in her moments of greatest weakness and sadness, that she feels her friends with them. And here's something I have to admit. I've told you before, I'm an emotional guy. And this was an insanely touching story. I mean, let's look at this too from this perspective, from a human perspective. This has been a journey for you and I for a year now. And so the emotions of this chapter and this chapter of our lives and this chapter of the show coming to an end, it just kind of all hit me. Now, I wasn't bawling, but I definitely got emotional and teared up a little bit. And there's a lot, there's something, you become very connected to the characters. And you really feel for them. And to see them have a glimpse of happiness is it's very rewarding. Especially because you've seen how tortured they are. And at a certain point in the story, it just becomes torture porn. I mean, it's just what else messed up can happen to Pip and her friends. Tremendous sacrifice. Tremendous sacrifice.
And Steelhooves wasn't here to see it.
And he lived 200 years and didn't get to see everything cleansed. But let's face it, Steelhooves was a product of the war, the taint, the hate,
that's
the
why
grudges.
That's why his name is Steelhooves and not Apple Snack. Because Apple Snack died.
Well, and what's Hitchcock's rule of cinema? If you make a monster, you have to kill the monster. And sometimes you have to become the monster to save the day. But that also means that there's no place for you in society. And that's kind of the truth about Pip. There is no place for Pip in this society.
We talked about that a little bit as well. Where do the soldiers go after the war? And I think we actually talked about that explicitly when it came to Steelhooves' death.
That one still bugged me. I mean, when I kept saying I like Steelhooves and I kept seeing comments of like, well, just wait. I mean, I was like, okay, so he's going to die at some point, but you're still not, it's just so quick. And there's no, this is my dying. It's just, he's just fucking gone. He's just gone.
It's shocking. It is absolutely shocking.
But I will say she uses the trope of the Deus Ex Hellhound like 4 times in the story. So by the time it happens in Red Eye's lair, you know what I mean? Like I was like, because of course that's what they do. Because why didn't they do it before? And I know it has to do with Colonel Autumn Leaf and
I mean, it is played into the story. It is not Deus Ex Magica, which is a term loosely used to describe when something is just brought out because it has there's no plant to the return.
Right.
It's
Looks like dragon magic.
Yeah.
Now it does this.
Now it does this.
Yeah. But then again, the plant of dragon magic is that it's mysterious. Even dragons don't really understand how it works. Spike didn't understand that the Enclave soldier he murdered in his cave actually wasn't murdered by him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they were murdered by fear, but they weren't murdered by him.
And it's important to note that that ability is actually brought up in the show.
So, right, it's
show.
canonical, but I will say something interesting too. So I imagine a scenario where Spike accidentally burps and fire shoots out of his mouth and like random crap gets sent to Pip.
That's how Celestia sends things back, is he burps and things show up.
Yeah.
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 So that actually happens.
Yeah, but I mean, imagine a dragon with indigestion and he burps and he just licks little rocks here and there in his cave.
Ooh.
Yeah, they just show up inside. Like, it'd be almost funnier if that room was not just full of bodies, but full of crap.
Yeah.
like love letters or something that he was pissed off about that he burned.
Oh, God.
Private confessions. Missed opportunity.
Yes.
I'm just saying. Anyways,
I think at that point in the story, it would have been inappropriate to make a joke.
I know, but it's just
let's step back.
It tickles me funny, but another thing I wanted to comment on, energy. So we have all this great farmland to grow on. They've cleared out a bunch of everfree forest. Rather, Applejack's Rangers have cleared out a bunch of everfree forest with the agreement of, what do they call it? The survivors of the cathedral, or the it's followers of Red Eye, but it's like the children that were there being educated. They're living in the Enclave ship, and they're the ones that had to give approval to Applejack's Rangers to clear out the forest to have some farmland.
Yeah.
But the problem is that once again, Equestria's problem is what their problem was before the war: energy. Now, Red Eye created
a radiation
generator, but the problem is we don't have radiation anymore in Equestria.
I mean, the radiation generator is effectively a nuclear reactor.
It is.
Yeah.
So the ghouls,
assuming magic works the same way it does.
The ghouls who weren't purified, who are forever tainted, their job, their business, their industry is to go out past the touches of Equestria and collect radioactive material and bring it back to use for those reactors. Mm-hmm. Which we also find out when they get a shipment in, there were some traders who had gone out to, I don't remember the name of the place, but they come back to the place that Fluttershy is at. Mm-hmm. Paladin Silverbell laments, I was really hoping that Mommy and Daddy would be back. So still, as an older, referring to Mommy and Daddy being... I was going to say Derpy Doo, but yeah, it's Ditsy Doo, and her now husband, Lionheart.
Yep.
As soon as they said Mommy and Daddy, I was like, because like I was doing the math in my head, I was like, it's going to be Lionheart.
Yeah,
it's going to be Lionheart.
Well, he's the only other feral that we have that's part of the story.
Right. But anyways, so that's their job, that's their industry, and they go collect that, and they make a good living doing it. But it gives the ghouls purpose in this world. Mm-hmm. And for all intents and purposes, they seem to be part of society. The other thing and last thing that's really important is that Zenith has discovered a way through a brew to change Alicorn's sex to male so that they can breed. And the way we know this is that in Fluttershy's class, there is an Alicorn infant. Mm-hmm. Well, not infant, child. Yeah. A foal.
Yeah.
And the Alicorn makes her very uncomfortable. Like, she's just a child, but still makes her very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because she understands the power and the danger.
Yeah.
But the brew is made utilizing Killing Joke.
Yeah.
Which means that the zebras that are left, their job is to farm it, which just terrifies her.
Yeah.
Now I would imagine that to farm it, they probably crafted some kind of armor out of the flowers that were at Zecora's hut. Mm-hmm. You'd have to keep it at a distance and keep it under control because it hates it.
Well, you'd use it as a armor and a weapon.
Didn't they say it feeds off the same energy and that's why they can't stand
the same psychic energy? Yeah.
Except the stuff at Zecora's hut is good. It's pretty. It's nice. It sends off positive energy.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't try to kill you. That's all it needs to do is not kill you.
Yeah. I love plants that don't kill me.
It's the best.
Last place says it's pretty interesting that they're still having problems with raiders even after Gardens of Equestria is used. Yes, so the crazy drug users in the wasteland are still there.
Yeah.
And now they're more desperate for resources. So the other thing is that in my head, I actually think a couple episodes I joked about the NCR, the New Canterlot Republic. Well, it is the New Canterlot Republic.
Yeah.
But with democratically elected leadership.
Yeah. I think the NCR had. It was kind of weird.
Well, there was a president of the NCR.
I don't remember exactly how the NCR was structured.
Poorly.
I think it went way more into detail in Fallout.
I hate siding with the NCR.
They're so boring and bureaucratic.
Well, it's not like Kaiser is any better. It's like in that environment, it's almost better to have anarchy.
Which is why I chose anarchy.
Yeah. I did do one playthrough where I sided with Kaiser. And I told you he's a flat character. It's uninteresting.
Yeah.
They try and make him more interesting, like he's dying of a brain tumor.
That does not make an interesting character.
It does not. So
it driving him to do something and him hiding it, now that's an interesting character. But it's anyone's guess whether the equestrian NCR will turn out the way of the New Vegas' bloated militaristic NCR. No idea.
It's still dependent on individuals.
Yeah. And you have to kind of go into the show to figure out exactly how that's going to work, and we have no idea.
Rettel says, I've never actually done the Kaiser path, but I've sided with NCR and House before. Here's the deal. If you like brutally, you get some cool armor and interesting weapons.
Yeah.
So the Kaiser path is worth doing. There's all sorts of subterfuge that you can do on the Kaiser path because you have a choice. You can save him. You can murder him covertly. There's lots that you can do. You can, usurp his power in a way.
But so let's take a step out of the story for a second, and I want you to look at the whole thing, and I want to say, so do you think you would have been as pleased with the story at the start? Do you think you would have enjoyed it as much as you have?
No, not at all.
And
so I guess I should give it some credit. I love you. You're my friend. I trust you. You have good taste. Obviously you're friends with me, but, but beyond that, I told you my experience with the fan fictions before have been quite poor, and most fan fictions are not written by somebody who has the ability to write.
Yeah.
Somebody who wants to make a story, but does not have the ability to write.
Yeah. There's a difference between coming up with a great story and portraying that story.
Yeah.
Because there are different ways to portray a story.
Right. So approaching it at no, and it probably took about the first third for me to really get on board.
Yeah.
I was picking up on it here and there, but it was kind of a slow start, especially because I didn't know any of the references. Mm-hmm. Now you get into the second third and the last third of the story, and you've learned through the reading enough My Little Pony stuff that things start to click.
Yeah.
Pardon the phrase, but yeah, it took me a while to get on board, and I'm sure if y'all go back and watch or listen, there wasn't anything to watch the first couple episodes, but if you listen to the first couple episodes, I would say my approach and demeanor was quite antagonistic.
I'd say it was more clinical, but yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, the funny thing is, too, it's not like there weren't gaps. There were definitely lulls in the story where I'm just like, all right, here we go again. Oh, wait, how are they going to screw up this time?
Yeah.
Anytime there's a plan, it's like, it's going to go, ass up.
I remember you talking about the dragon fight. You were very interested in that. That seemed like one of the first times you were drawn in.
It was well written. There was good build up to it. Like a Fallout campaign, there were options.
And there was
you can go with this path or this path. And then the surprise, Mr. Topaz, by the way, he's a giant goddamn dragon.
Nobody was expecting that.
Yeah. Surprise, motherfucker. And then Calamity shows up with an anti-aircraft cannon on his chest.
So let me ask you this: would you recommend it to somebody you trusted, somebody who's a friend, another friend of yours? Would you recommend this?
Absolutely, with the prerequisite that they kind of actually have to have played Fallout.
Yeah,
I don't think it stands on its own hoofs in a vacuum. It does not.
On its own hoofs.
If you don't know
if
you know My Little Pony, but you don't like Fallout, but you would like to see a more grown-up version of My Little Pony, it'll probably make you want to go play Fallout.
Yeah.
If you know Fallout, but you don't know My Little Pony, and here's the stigma, is you and I hesitate to tell people about this show because of the stigma.
Oh yeah.
Because we have to there's a caveat to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's about My Little Pony. But wait, before you think I'm a weirdo.
But before you leave, don't run.
Please don't call the police. We should proselytize door to door.
Oh, God.
Hello, sir or madam.
Have you heard about the Good Book of Pip?
Yes. Oh, my God. Oh, man. Well, and what's funny is that they mention it, that people kind of start to begin to worship Little Pip. Because Little Pip is a messianic figure.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely messianic. And that fulfills the storyline, because I think that is any true hero's journey, is that the hero has to become messianic.
So it looks like we've got a couple people here who had the same phenomenon. They liked My Little Pony, but weren't really into Fallout. I'll be honest. I wasn't into Fallout until he turned me on to it. Chris plays way more games than I have. And so there are big titles that hit. And my thing is like, it's just a big developer, whatever. How good could it really be? But you said, Robert, you have to play Fallout. In fact, you bought it for me.
Yeah.
And you said, you have to play Fallout. Back when you could still play Fallout 3 vanilla on the PC.
Which you could barely do. Thank you, Games for Windows Live.
Could barely do, yes. But anyways, and so that was my first experience was Fallout 3. And then New Vegas, and then Fallout 4. And I've played through parts of 1 and 2 as well. But those, they're slower.
Oh, yeah. It is more of a.
And good luck figuring it out. Just exploring things on your own.
Oh God, the game was meant to punish you if you went the wrong way, but it was actually written in that way. It was written to kind of. It's less handholdy, sure, and it can be more interesting in that way. But
yeah,
with the advancements, I would say in the connectivity that you can make in world space through having voiced dialogue, at least.
I have to say, between 3 and 4, I much prefer a silent protagonist.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't add anything to game to hear me say things.
I think it actually ruined, and I've brought this up multiple times, I think it actually did worse because they didn't write it correctly.
Knocklupu says, and been playing TTW intensively for a couple of weeks. Thanks for turning me on to that.
Good.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that's the way to play the game.
Yep. Tale of Two Wastelands combines Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas into one little umbrella and connects them in a way that makes the story make sense. Obviously, it's not perfectly to lore, but it works well enough to where.
Well, and the other thing is too, like,
it's great.
So if you start out in the DC Wasteland and play that entire game, by the time you get to Fallout New Vegas, some of the pitfalls of New Vegas can be forgotten because you're a higher level character.
Oh, yeah.
Because that game is so... It's the illusion of an open world with lots of hidden code to make sure you don't go places.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I mean, there's invisible walls all over the fucking place. But again, that's a story for a different time. What I was going to say about Fallout 4 just real quick is that because they had a voice protagonist, it should have portrayed more of his emotion as an individual, but it didn't, because after you get out of the vault, you don't really experience any more emotional connectivity to this man outside.
You have a few scripted moments.
Yeah.
Early. Mm-hmm. But the game would have been more interesting if we had all of those.
And the thing is that...
Like Dear Esther.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I've walked over to this thing now. I'm going to get a bit of dialogue. I'm learning more about myself, and that immerses you in the character.
Yeah, and obviously, Dear Esther is not what many would consider a game. It was really the first walking simulator, and it was the only one I consider that's any good because
no replay value.
No replay value, but it doesn't need it. It also sold for $6 on release, so it was kind of the price of a movie. Game. Yeah, it was the price of a movie. It kind of felt like a movie. It was great.
Lasts for a while, yeah.
The thing about Fallout 4, but what I mean is, this is a guy who was grown in this area. The grocery store down the street, he probably knew the name of the grocer there.
Yeah.
He had a job. If you play as the wife, she definitely had a job in Boston. She worked there. She had coworkers.
She was a lawyer, right?
Yeah, she was a lawyer. She knew people. She had a job there. The second you walk out, they should be on the ground crying because they realize...
Like, here's a coffee shop. That's where I used to meet Tammy for coffee. Well... And that was a long time ago now, but it feels like yesterday to me.
Yeah, there's a part of it that just feels like you talk about Captain America in Marvel, where he's a man out of time, where every single thing, and there's kind of this loss to the character whenever you see him on an emotional level. We should have gotten that.
Right.
And because it's voiced, it really doesn't make any sense why that should have gone through. Without it being voiced at all, it's absolutely fine. They went with no connectivity, but with it being voiced, there should be a lot more loss on the character's voice whenever he goes to an area and they're like, "Oh, you knew this place?" "Yeah, I just yesterday I sat on that corner."
Yeah.
And it's like, it should be terrifying.
Why did 666 says Fallout 4 kind of wanted to be Metro, but was forced to be Fallout? I would also say Fallout 4 wanted to be The Sims, but had to be Fallout. I know K-Cat loves that crap. It just did nothing for me. It did nothing for me.
Yeah,
but slow down the game.
Yeah, there was a lot of it that it was something.
There's better ways to passively create things in your inventory.
Oh, I mean, there's more than that. It really comes down to the fact that to finish the main quest, you pretty much have to do every part of every aspect of the gameplay when it should not have been required.
Yeah.
It should have been, you are allowed to finish the game in whatever way you want. You are granted so many paths based on any type of gameplay that's available.
You independently blew up the Minutemen, the Institute, and the Brotherhood of Steel.
Oh, and guess what? The railroad? Yeah, now they're like underwater. I mean, it should have allowed you to do that. And it's not like they don't have the technology to accomplish it.
The other thing that really bothered me is that there is no way to adequately make peace. People have had to make mods.
Yeah.
You know, the win-win for everybody. The other thing that bothers me about Fallout, and Skyrim for that matter, is that you can change your class on the fly.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. There's no... You can just, I'm a ranger right now. No, I'm also a mage. No, I'm also a fighter. No, and they try and put caps on things.
Skyrim, this is the last note before we get back into the story, obviously. Skyrim was built, and I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of people on this, it was built to be as accessible as possible to everyone. So they didn't put any hard limits to anything, really, because they never wanted to stop somebody from just playing the game as loosely as they could.
Yeah.
And that's for better or for worse. The game obviously has sold gangbusters, has made gobs of money.
Well, even you and I, for our complaints, we put a lot of hours in that game.
I think I actually have over 1,000 hours in that game.
Yeah.
I think I have 1,200. But the thing is that it's just what it is. It's what it is. Going back to the story, I was going to ask you, would you recommend this story to anyone who you didn't immediately trust or know? Maybe somebody who was like just passing colleague and they asked like, what's this whole thing about? What would you say to them?
Hit me with that again.
Let's say I'm talking
to somebody who has no connection to either.
No, not that. It's somebody who you didn't immediately trust with the knowledge. It's somebody who's like a friend of a friend. And they were like, "Oh yeah, they told me you were doing a podcast about a book. What did you think about that?"
Yeah. Well, I've given two answers. To older people, I just tell them that it's a book review. That's it's a an interesting book. It's a funny book. It's an interesting critique. But if I'm actually trying to pitch it to somebody to give it a try, I have not done that in a vacuum. You know, I basically, because for the show really is for people who've read the book.
Yeah. I just mean like if that would come up to somebody, like we said, like somebody who you're really familiar with, would you sell it to them? And you're like, yes. And then I'm like, if it were to come up,
it's a tough thing. It's a good story,
mm-hmm.
but it's, like I said, I feel like you've got to have your toes in one of them.
Yeah.
To really appreciate it.
I could see that.
Not that, again, like I said, I guess what I am saying is that the story does not stand on its own without some knowledge of either property.
I could agree with that,
yeah.
Simply because the world space it's in and a lot of the stuff that it's actually using is so based on other things. Right. It's structurally unsound without knowledge of those previous things.
3 dozen, no, it's probably more than that. There's a bajillion times in the story, I'll make up a number,
mm-hmm.
where it's like, hey.
And I said, Neil, are you crazy? Yeah.
Right. And there's a ton of that just, I just didn't. I don't get. And it's another one of those moments where I was like, pony
It was a very in thing when the book came out to do that. It was a part of the whole ponification of everything.
Right. Well, and I don't blame it for that. I don't blame it for that.
The thing
but in a vacuum, you're not going to appreciate that at all.
I agree as well. If I could go back in time, if I could find a way,
if you like Cher could turn back time,
I would probably, and I could poke K-Cat. I'd be like, I know you want to Try not to do that as much as you can.
I don't think the MLP fans would have liked it as much if you cut that stuff out.
True, because again, it was a very of the time thing. It's hard to say.
Let's face it. So this book, the dominating fandom for this book is My Little Pony.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
It's the number one.
I think if you liked My Little Pony and just didn't care about the fuzziness, fluffiness, happiness of it, you could just enjoy it for what it is. You would have no problem delving into the book and probably understanding it from the top up. Fallout, you wouldn't have as easy a time.
Yeah. One, and basically all of the location names in the story come from My Little Pony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I mean. I know there's references to places.
Oh, it's based directly off of what's in the story. I mean, it is based directly off of the world.
Yeah.
So
that's just what I was getting at. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a hard sell to someone who's not a fan of either. Now, if I come across somebody who really likes Fallout, it's less of a hard sell.
Yeah. I mean, people have described it as My Little Pony in Fallout or Fallout in My Little Pony. But I feel like the most appropriate thing is My Little Pony where Fallout happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of, if any of you can hear that.
Yeah, they may be able to hear that.
The good old
fire siren here.
Yeah, the air raid siren they got going off. Technically, I think that's the all clear.
Yeah, every time I hear, no, it's to get the volunteer fire department rolling. But anytime I hear that, it always makes me think of Japanese Zeros flying overhead. Get in the ditch.
Makes me wonder if they were all built by Mitsubishis, how did they ever manage to make it even into combat without breaking down?
Oh, my Mitsubishi ran forever, and it's probably still running in some third world shithole right now.
By terrorists.
Probably.
Knowing where they do it with all the
I don't want to think about Fiona becoming a car bomb. Why'd you have to say that? It's hard letting an old car go.
Don't I know it?
I know. Yeah, your car, the engine was just completely
locked. It
seized.
Main center bearing completely locked on it because it stopped turning, and I turned it over once, and it kind of went and then stopped, and we waited and came back later that day, and I put a big torque bar on the crankshaft.
Wouldn't turn.
It wouldn't turn with like me jamming on it, so I was like, it's done.
That was fun.
It was fun.
It was a good summer, but it was a rough end. To a good summer.
Well, I already broke down on the way. So that was always interesting.
That was the trip.
That's a story for another time, kids.
That's a story for a random frequency.
Yeah, that's a story.
Or a fireside chat with Chris and Robert.
We should do some of those. Talk about our adventures in life.
We have good stories.
Yeah.
I was reminiscing. I'll touch on one a little bit. I was reminiscing about us driving up to Mount Pisgah and having breakfast at sunrise.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Didn't we do that when we did the filming?
No.
Because I remember
maybe.
No, we didn't, because we did that with Bobby.
Yeah, well, Bobby was... No, that's right, because I drove back that day, afternoon when I was filming up on Craggy Pinnacle.
We had lunch at the pizza place. Okay, so Rattle says, not looking forward not looking forward to my first total car failure. Because it's a life experience.
Yeah, it is.
And it's something you have to go through to understand. Because, like, that's what I told people before is parents need to teach their children how to deal with car breakdowns. They need to teach them how to deal with emergency situations, because a lot of parents just hope for the best and try to tell their children it'll all be okay, but they don't really teach them how to deal with a situation where they are out alone, broken down, and unavailable to really get anybody immediately.
Well, let's think about now. We're so spoiled with cell phones.
Yeah.
It used to be if you broke down, you didn't have a way to contact somebody, you were hiking.
Well, I mean,
which I have done.
Well, even with cell phones, it still doesn't stop a lot of the emotion behind some of it. Because I've pulled over behind people who broke down on the side of the road, and it's the first time, and they're crying. They are absolutely crying because they're terrified.
I remember my first flat tire scared the shit out of me because it's a cacophony of noise, and you're like, that sounds like air escaping, and then it's you know very quickly at 70 miles an hour that something ain't right. I'm just glad I've never had a full-scale blowout. That was like a puncture, but like having a tire explode.
Those aren't common anymore.
No, they're not. Well, unless you let your tires get threadbare.
They aren't common. I didn't say they weren't possible. They are possible, kids. And you have gotten your tires get threadbare. What are you talking about?
No, they've gotten threadbare, but so when I found the thread, I went and replaced the tires that day.
Well, no, that was now. I'm talking about when your father was in charge of it.
Oh, well, my dad would buy used tires and ad infinitum and so on and so on.
There was one where there was tread throwing a tread showing across the tire all the way around. The only thing visible was the tread.
The first emissions warning or the first check engine light. Yeah, the check engine light is never actually something critical. If it's critical, your car's going to sound like shit.
Actually, if it's critical, your check engine light will flash. That is actually a thing. Your check engine light will start flashing.
If it's just on, it's an O2 sensor. It's a catalytic converter.
All it means is something bad happened. What happens next is your engine will go into low power mode, which means you can't really rev over like 3,000 to 4,000 RPM. You can still drive with it. You'll notice that there's a noticeable power loss, and you just need to get it to a mechanic.
So last place says used to ride their bicycle to high school. In Asheville, where Chris and I lived, that was not happening.
No.
You want to talk about uphill both ways?
Yeah, it was uphill both ways. And yeah.
With a brief respite of downhill in the middle, but it's like...
Also, if you do have a check engine light on, you can take it to the nearest car parts store if it's new enough, and they can actually, they will actually pull out a scanner and they'll tell you what it means. Now they may not always know what it is. Sometimes it is confusing, such as low coolant level at closed fuel loop. Thank you, my first Eagle, for that mystery error that we never got solved.
I want to ride like an eagle.
Into the ditch.
Shit. Yeah, into a ditch. Yeah, you did a lot.
It sounded beautiful.
You did a little bit of that.
It sounded beautiful. Thank you.
We've totally gotten off the topic. So we totally just got into a friend's corner.
Yes.
Fireside chats.
But getting back.
I do have a fireside.
Yes.
We could actually do them by the fireside.
We can't do it on the webcam, though, because your poor laptop doesn't like it.
Nah, it's all right.
That's sad.
I can also I just keep hemorrhaging money, so maybe I'll just buy another laptop at some point.
Don't do that.
I bought a new car in January, and today we leased a new car for my wife. So
I spent so much money to get the dealership to fix the thing. Lol, definitely going to try to parts store next time. Sorry for contributing to the real. Oh no, you're fine.
Well, this is kind of a wrap up. This is a wrap up to season 1.
Yeah.
I mean, and so here's the deal for everyone here and for our Patreon supporters. Chris and I are still going to contribute. We're going to still be making things to the channel, but it's going to be very hard for me to do season 2 of the Foally of Man for a little while.
Yeah.
I've told you, I've got my little man on the way. He'll be here in 20 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan. He could be here sooner.
Okay, call from the other room right now.
Oh God, don't. I've had like 2 weeks straight of 12-hour days.
You would definitely call into work and be like, guess who's not coming in tomorrow?
Doesn't matter. Hey, thank you, everybody. We're super excited.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm really excited to introduce you to him. One, I'm really excited to meet him, but I'm also really excited to have, a little baby. I mean, I'm not going to broadcast it from his nursery, but
every night.
No. So we do have a name, but we're keeping the name secret.
It's Bartholomew.
No, it is not Bartholomew. But
Hezekiah.
It's a good. Actually, that's not a bad one. Yeah, like
Festus.
No, not Festus. Mixmaster Festus.
There's still the bridge. You know that bridge, the railroad bridge in Asheville on River Road.
Oh, somebody said yes, I do. Somebody said Matthias. Matthias was actually in the top 10 because of Redwall. All of my names are literary. All the names I was interested in were literary.
Calamity.
Other than Elvis Ulysses, which I just love the sound of Elvis Ulysses rolling off the tongue. And my wife said, abso-fucking-lutely not.
But there's a bridge in Asheville that still has on one of the pillars between the 2 lanes a cross with the name Festus on it. Because at some point somebody ran into it named Festus, and they put the flowers on the side of the road.
In memoriam Festus.
In memoriam Festus. It's just been there for a decade.
I know y'all are all spread out, and you don't exactly know Asheville, North Carolina, but it's a mountain community in the South. But Appalachian culture is completely different from Southern culture. It's far more insular. It's
far more is definitely an understatement there.
And also an isolated low IQ population. Not a good combination. Not a good combination.
Very isolated.
And low IQ. But good, hard-working pale people. I mean, I take for granted what a tan looks like. You go back up to Asheville and you're like, oh, back to the cave with you. Back, devil.
It's all those north to south valleys is what it is. No sunlight.
Well, yeah. Sun's up at 9, sun's down at 5.
Oh,
remember our Boy Scout camp was down in the valley.
Yeah, I know.
And so, yeah, well, of course, you worked out there. You're like, oh, it was, 80 degrees today. Sun sets 34.
It's either burning or it's freezing. You get 2. You don't get 1.
We used to love to tell a joke about people from Florida coming up to Lake Allen, and they defy physics because they'd actually skip across the surface of the water.
The trick was that it was one of the few lakes I've ever seen that was not river fed. Oh no, it was spring fed, which meant that the water never got above about 45 degrees.
Mountain spring fed.
So which meant that if you were from an area where the water's always like 75, 80 degrees, and you hop in expecting that, you are in for the worst time of your life.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a few people
that sensation in your throat and your head when you drink something or eat something too cold? Imagine that all over your body.
I remember hearing a few people make chirping noises as they screamed when they went in. That was always fun.
Probably peaked their mics right there.
Yeah, true.
Oh, somebody pointed out that we have not done funny voices on the show in a long time.
Yeah.
It's because we've gotten serious.
Yeah, we focus more on the content of the show. Thank you.
Yes. But yeah, basically it's because we got into the deep shit of the story.
So let me ask you this. Where would you place this? And I know it's pretty hard to give it a specific place, but on all the stories you've ever read or watched or anything like that, where would you say it lands?
Well, it'd be easier to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10 than it would be compared against other literature.
Give it a scale of 1 to 10 then.
All right. On my own personal scale of 1 to 10.
Yep.
I gave the story an 8 out of 10.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
I'd say that's fair. And I guess I should give some context. So if Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey are 1. And then what would be a 10?
Raise of hands if you thought when he said Twilight, he was actually talking about the horse and not the book.
Yeah. So if that's a 1. Yeah. If that's a 1, what would be a 10 as in a perfect piece of literature?
Not literature. I mean, you can call it literature any story. I mean, I'm doing this very vaguely.
Oh, well, then that just includes that. Let's just stick to books.
Okay. I don't know how much you've read. So.
But so if I think of a perfect story, things like To Kill a Mockingbird,
mm-hmm.
That's right up at, that's a 10. Mm-hmm. That's a perfect story. The Cat's Cradle, that's high on the list. That's a great book. Mm-hmm. Any way you judge it. Of Mice and Men, it's probably of Mice and Men's probably a 7 or an 8 to give that some perspective.
I would have, I guess compared to this, yeah, I would definitely put it up there.
Yeah, I mean,
it's because
I was trying to find something that kind of puts it on the same par. If I'm honest, I enjoy this more than Of Mice and Men.
Who enjoys Mice and Men?
Well,
you get to the end of it, it's like it is a trial.
I actually really like John Steinbeck. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment.
Well, no, I mean, it's not that it's bad. It's that it is just so brutal and almost unforgiving. And it's so sad. It's beautiful.
Agent MLP 412. War and Peace of what?
And Game of Thrones.
No. It says War and Peace. A piece of what?
Mein Kampf. You're missing a lot of commas there.
There's a lot of 20th century fascism there that I'm not cool with.
I mean, yeah, Communist Manifesto, which is that. Isn't it 20 pages?
It's short. It's more than 20 pages.
I know it's tiny. Mein Kampf, much thicker. It pretty much boils down to.
I'm just gonna.
I mean, you could just
cozy up next to the fire and thumb through Mein Kampf.
Well, I mean, technically,
wait, we said Mein Kampf.
I mean,
demonetized.
Technically, I mean, the book can only actually be 3 pages. It's just blame the Jews. Oh, yeah. Well, that's done. Art of War. That's not really literature. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've read The Art of War. It is not literature.
Yes, Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
It's a rule book is what it is. It's just a series of rules. It's really interesting rules. and some of them can apply to everyday life, and some of them are completely out of date.
Last Place says that story ended so sad. Mice and Men is so brutal. Actually, Hitler would have loved of Mice and Men.
He really would have.
Because they got rid of the mentally feeble.
True. He also really loved, he really loved Metropolis, which is weird.
Huh. Yeah.
Which is a story kind of like about breaking down the societal barriers between men. And that's what's weird.
But you see, I am the machine.
I know. It's so weird. Yeah. War and Peeve by Leo Tolstoy. I don't remember the War and Peeve. I remember the War and Peace. Okay. We're
picking apart grammar.
No, we understand. Yeah. War and Peace. It'd probably be a lot easier to read now that I've finished both Fallout Equestria and Project Horizons, being that it is not nearly as long.
I guess I have an obsession with authors from the Roaring 20s, because I was thinking of people I really love, like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, Oscar Wilde. Those are all people from that time period.
I read Ayn Rand a long time ago.
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand?
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand?
Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand?
Just say Ayn Rand.
Whoever. I read Atlas Shrugged a long time ago. It did not really do anything for me. It could have been that I was too young.
It didn't turn you the least bit capitalist.
It doesn't. I mean, the characters it portrays are the good guys are always the best, and the bad guys are always the worst, and it's kind of comical.
Yeah.
BioShock does it justice. Yeah, BioShock brought in a little more moral gray area into the story, which I think probably would have helped.
Well, and by BioShock 3, they basically completely dismantle and destroy the principles that were put forward in Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, technically, it's BioShock Infinite. Also known as BioShock, we aren't going to have a sequel, suck it up.
Also known as BioShock Rail Shooter.
Oh, yes. So let's not turn this into a conversation about Ayn Rand.
Well, somebody brought up the Communist Manifesto, so.
Well, it was the same guy who brought up Ayn Rand.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was just nice in its own vacuum as a game.
Zero replayability.
It really didn't have any.
They create 50-50 decisions that supposedly change the story, but
well, they changed the story before, and then they were like, well, it changes the story in different ways. It does nothing. And look, can we talk about the end of that game is the most disappointing boss fight, because it takes the entire gameplay, the whole game mechanics, and it just stops you. Because the whole point is kind of like a run and gun. Get to the next area, run. You have to keep going.
The other thing that bothers me is that you never really get enough upgrades to kind of fully to really feel like a god. And by the end of the game, you should feel kind of like a god. You know what I mean?
The first BioShock, you were a big daddy with a fucking rocket launcher.
So Agent MLP 412 says, any of you just asking ever played Magic the Gathering? I did not play Magic the Gathering. Kind of that pay to win model that you have to get certain cards to build certain decks to have a chance to beat anybody. You and I did play some card games, but never hyper competitively.
Yeah, it just got kind of boring, and I just fell out.
Well, it always fell down to who had the most money and who could build the best deck.
Yeah. You had kind of luck when you were getting the booster packs, which just kind of felt sad when you were paying real world money for it, because it's like, well, this is never going to end up going anywhere.
Right. Well, unless you bought them individually, you could never actually.
You haven't played Mass Effect 3. Now that's a disappointing ending. Oh, I know. I actually played Mass Effect 1 and 2. I've played through both of those games. I've played through Mass Effect 1 at least 24 times.
Two dozen times?
Yeah.
24 times?
Yeah. You don't want to know how many times I played through Knights of the Old Republic. I played through it so many times that I remember all the dialogue. Still. That's the tune whenever you get into the combat. I have that playing in my head.
All I'm saying is never forget Talus.
Oh, never forget Talus.
Oh, yeah, of course we've played Team Fortress 2. And
you don't want to talk about a disappointing ending, Team Fortress 2. Where the ending is literally just obscurity because they didn't create a competitive scene. BioWare, baby. BioWare is a baby now. They've gone back to the baby days where they're crying. I don't know what they're doing. I could tolerate the ending.
Andromeda's not a game. It's not. It's not a finished game.
I guess they finished it eventually. Somebody told me they did actually fix a lot of the bugs in it.
Doesn't matter. It does not matter. You're not going to fix the face animations.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry. My face hurts from all of this.
My face is tired.
My face is tired. Sorry.
It's like, I want to know who wrote that dialogue. I want to meet the man. Resident Evil. Any of you guys play?
Not a Resident Evil guy.
No, I didn't play Resident Evil.
Nothing against it. Just,
I'm against it only because I know somebody who's really into it, and I like pissing him off.
Yeah,
I'm into cheer for old school BioWare. Yes, old school BioWare.
Which would be KOTOR 1, because KOTOR 2 was done by fucking Obsidian,
which has the same disappointments and failures as...
Because they can't complete a game, Chris. They can't do it.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's the same problems where there's a whole bunch of quests which kind of
we all knew the guy who's like, and then we're gonna have this, and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna go to this bar, and then we're gonna, and it's always like it never lives up to the.
What's funny is if you look,
they're the Peter Molyneux of modern developers.
The Peter Molyneux is the Peter Molyneux.
Yeah, but he's not really doing anything anymore.
Yeah, I guess Obsidian actually did kind of clean up their act with whatever that was. What was it, Divinity that they made, which apparently is really good. But that was because it was their own IP. We already said thoughts on Skyrim. You're not paying attention. I guess you weren't here for it, though. We already did thoughts on Skyrim. We've done thoughts on Skyrim.
We like Skyrim. You and I both played through the game a bunch of times.
Yeah,
we have complaints, but it's...
Oh, yeah.
The problem is that you got to do a lot to make it look nice.
Yeah.
But once you make it look nice, did you see the new video on Skyrim VR from the guy we like?
Yeah.
About how, like in VR, he's like, wow, it's like, this is amazing, but look at all the mods I had to install to make it look amazing.
Yeah. It's just, it's an art style, and it just doesn't really hold up as it could.
Well, and I'll be honest, I love... Oh, hey there, Shinigami.
Obsidian actually did also do, and it's not officially, and it's technically Obsidian back when they were kind of Black Isle, did Fallout 2. And 2 actually has a few of the same things where they had a whole bunch of overreach that never ended up fulfilling itself, and a bunch of quests that actually kind of just end. So they kind of kept that pattern for a long time. You figured they would have done something about that.
Oh, and I do feel as though I owe you a punny pun of the week. A pony pun of the week.
A pony pun of the week.
A pony pun of the week.
Pony pun of the week.
The pony pun of the week
is...
The pony pun of the week is Fool's Gold. Fool's Gold.
Oh.
You like that?
It soured the beer.
It's bitter like my soul. The pony pun of the week. You better strap yourself in, boyo.
So have you played... Okay, let me ask you this. Have you played any games recently? I mean, in general, because I don't know if you actually...
Yes. So, but I've been playing on the Switch.
Okay, so what have you been playing?
So when I bought the Switch, I got Super Mario Odyssey and got like 780 moons. And I was like, okay, yes, I could be a completionist about this, but you can get 999 and keep getting them. So I kind of stopped there. But when I finally bought Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that's just been my obsession.
Yeah.
Because I have never played an RPG that's so... It's a role-playing game, but you're role-playing as a character. I mean, how do you classify it?
It's an RPG.
Yeah.
Just consider it an open-world RPG.
I've never played one that's been so much fun.
Mm.
I find myself looking forward to getting to sit down and unwind with it in the evenings. There's things that I need that take time to find or collect. Like I need a star fragment, and shooting stars are rare in the game. But there's places you can go that might improve your odds, and you sit. So what you do is you sit and you're literally watching this beautiful world kind of turn in front of you.
Yeah. I remember playing when Skyrim first came out, being really excited and playing it. And I was so thankful that it was made by Bethesda. I mean, if any other developer had made it, it couldn't have been nearly as perfect for me because thanks to it being made by Bethesda, it crashed once every 6 hours, allowing me to remind myself that I needed to eat, sleep, and use the restroom. And if it was made by anyone else and it didn't crash, I probably would have been dead. That's just the truth of it.
Do you think we'll have another game like Crisis that pushes the boundaries of hardware?
Not in the same way.
Forces the hand of hardware?
No, not in the same way.
Probably because they didn't make enough money off of it.
No, it wasn't that. It's just the fact that the only way that we can improve hardware at this point is not through visual fidelity, because we're getting as close to ray tracing as we're going to get without actually going into ray tracing. And some people are actually trying to do full ray tracing. You can find demos online of some people doing the Quake 2 demo in ray tracing.
The materials to make those kinds of processors are probably hidden on Mars at the pole under 400 feet of ice and guarded by some kind of space demon. That's our plan, Christopher. Our plan is we're going to invade Mars.
That's a good idea.
We're going to build a big, beautiful space wall around it.
I mean, if anyone is going to build a Dyson sphere, wouldn't it be Trump? A giant space wall?
Yeah. It's going to be huge.
Sequel of Last of Us is good as the first. I didn't play Last of Us.
No.
Because I've already told people at length exactly why I don't like arboreal paradises as post-apocalypses, because it's too pristine and beautiful. It's like, I don't feel awful. I feel like I could just sit and have fun.
Yeah, you just like everything to be dead.
Yeah.
Like your soul.
Like my soul. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what games I've played recently.
Yeah, I mean, we bought Doom.
Oh yeah,
Doom, which I've barely played any.
It's very good.
I just bought.
It runs very. You talk about a game that runs really fucking well. It runs really fucking well. Mind you, you have to, I think, have hardware that's compatible with the Vulkan for it to run that good. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's an amazing game.
I think your problem with Last of Us is you just don't give a shit about Ellen Page.
No.
Yeah.
Why would I care about...
Kill her. Let her die.
No.
Let her die. Tree thing. Let it eat her.
It's the zombies. They make clicking noises. They're also spongy, sporous fungi, but
I'm a fun guy.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that vault. The
New Vegas.
Yeah, New Vegas vault.
That had that vault. Also known as The Last of Us 1.0.
Yeah, but I was trying to think. I just bought Hotline Miami 2, which I've wanted for years, but just finally splurged and bought because it was on Super Saver sale over the weekend. So I'll probably be getting into that soon. I loved the first game.
It's not as difficult.
That's a shame.
It's still difficult, but what they did is they made it less difficult, but they lengthened the levels out to where they're much more complicated and there's many more enemies.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you can start seeing very puzzly shapes in all of them where it's like, okay, this isn't a building. This is actually a very clear level. But didn't have any interest in zombie games going into Last of Us, and I still don't. Zombie apocalypse, and we've actually had a lot of
zombocalypse.
A zombocalypse. It has to do with the fear of social decay, the falling and crumbling of society, which is the same reason it's very similar to
the animal within all of us.
Yeah, and
also Peruvian soccer players.
And a good way to prove that, yes, and a good way to prove that is by going back and watching Assault on Precinct 13.
Yep,
the first one. In that the very end of it looks like a zombie movie. Very much, because it shows that social decay and the collapse of society looks like that. That's exactly what it looks and plays out like. World that live on as humans die out. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, because they've been selling since the late 60s that humans are going to destroy their environment. The only problem is that humans are always really good at making their environment adapt to us.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
We made air conditioning. Get over, suck it, heat.
That's what made the South finally livable.
Fuck you, the sun.
I'm going to take heat from here, and I'm going to put it over there.
And we're going to have cold.
And there'll be blackjack and hookers.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we got that.
Oh,
Blackjack, hookers, and air conditioning.
I don't know where to go from here. I just feel like I'm falling asleep on stream.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
I was going to say, if it looks like I'm tired, it's because I am. Mm-hmm. I don't even have a baby here yet, so this is bad.
Wait, did somebody say Horizons? Yes, Blackjack would appreciate
God, no.
Blackjack and hookers, which was the ongoing joke.
Too bad they're male hookers.
She wouldn't mind.
Great. How do you one-up a lesbian character? A bisexual character.
I feel like bisexual is too exclusive.
So here's a challenge. Somebody needs to remake Rocky Horror Picture Show with My Little Pony.
They probably have.
The Cloppy Horror Picture Show. Something like that.
Yeah. So, I feel like that's going to be it. I don't think we're talking about
anybody have
anymore.
any? No, I was going to say, anybody have any last minute questions?
Oh yeah, since we're probably
we didn't even really talk about the funeral.
The South would have won the war if it had AC. Yes. I mean, it's very obvious because
I said it made the South livable. I didn't say it would make the South rise again.
well, no, think
Although,
I mean, you think about it. For AC to work, you'd have to have everything that would be there to make AC work, which doesn't inherently include electricity. But if the South had electricity and the North didn't, yes, the South would have won the war. Technically, anyone with that advanced technology would have won the war. It would have been that simple.
my love for you burns like something in a mason jar.
Because they would have used Morse,
Yeah.
and you can't get around instant electronic communication.
The one thing the Yankees weren't expecting was a thermonuclear warhead.
Riding on the back of it in cowboy hat is Festus. Woo-hoo! The South will rise again. Oh. You're not demonetized. We're just, I mean, YouTube's just going to pull us from the platform for me even saying those words. Okay, so now that we're completely finished talking about Fallout Equestria and the fact that Robert enjoyed it, I enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed it too. I hope you enjoyed us.
And if you don't, go fuck yourself.
Not that rudely, but of course.
No.
Also, we're missing Spliff.
Wait,
Can somebody go pull him out of the closet where he's just hiding?
Okay, Knockloopy says, last minute question. Where do you think /hope the next Fallout game will take place? It's always going to be in America, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
They're coming to America.
I mean, it would be interesting to have it in Britain. I don't know exactly how culturally it would kind of play out, because you could have the mods versus the rockers to the extreme.
Hell yeah. No.
But
wait, why are the Atom Cats here?
but I think
so we haven't really done LA, but I'm tired of like LA stuff.
Well, LA was bombed to shit.
Yeah. There's Chicago, but then again, that's just not as much. I don't know. What would be interesting to you? Where'd be you'd love somewhere barren.
If you did Chicago, it would look like fucking Metro, because it's cold, it's icy.
It's kind of what Chicago looks like.
That's what I mean.
Right now.
That's what I mean. Is that it's oh no, that's Detroit. Barren, icy, cold.
There are people who've said New Orleans, which I think is dumb. I'm not into that.
And New Orleans got played out a great deal when Left 4 Dead 2 came out. Like, there were a lot of things.
Wouldn't
that
it be
had
kind
that
of
style.
nice to have a place that was actually sheltered? It was so isolated but it was still surrounded by destruction. So like somewhere in the Midwest or in the mountains somewhere.
Las Vegas, you mean?
Yeah, except it's still just a sparse fucking desert because that was their assets.
I know. So yeah, I would think it would be cool to do someplace like St. Louis.
Okay.
Or Boulder, Colorado. Setting it in Colorado would be really fucking cool.
It's Skyrim, but
yeah.
Fallout.
Yeah. The verticality would definitely make it very interesting.
Hawaii. That's interesting.
Ooh, that would be
actually Japan.
You could do Guam, but that would be the smallest playable world space that they ever did.
Japan would be pretty cool.
Could be, yeah.
Because do we talk about the Japanese in the story?
I think they fell out rather quickly because it was a version of the world where they hadn't had a chance to technologically develop.
I gotcha.
So
and they're right next to China.
Yeah, so they would have been overtaken by China immediately.
Next year in Fallout, Australia. Sydney.
What did Sydney look like in the 50s?
They can't afford the Australian talent, which means they'll just use anybody.
Yeah. Japan was eaten by China, yeah. Toronto.
Next year in Fallout, Germany. Das über Deutschland.
Oh God. You want to talk about some like they wouldn't even bother like with the Nazi like analog. They would just go with Nazis. Which Metro already did. Come on, be original.
Oh yeah, so you've got already the deadliest creatures on Earth that have been irradiated.
Yeah, so now you have to worry about. Oh look, here's a little asset. Look, see how there's little spiders. Oh, it's an actual little spider.
I would
dead.
say Fallout.
How am I dead?
I would say Fallout French Polynesia, but that's just Far Cry.
Actual Far Cry. Isn't US bigger because they annexed the whole? Yeah, they annexed.
You could do Canada, but who wants to go to Canada?
Yeah. Oh no, that would be really cool because what you could do is you go to Toronto and your level up powers would actually be in what kind of socks you put on.
Now there is an argument for like, well, why don't we see it from China's perspective? But I don't give a shit about China's perspective.
Yeah, they need to die.
Yeah,
they were evil. They were the bad ones, and they keep saying like, well, maybe morally they weren't evil. It's like they were communists. And you're in a world where communism is absolutely evil.
Canadians don't have feelings. That's why you apologize for everything.
Poor Knock Lupus.
If anybody has anything to apologize for, it's Americans. But we're not going to apologize. That's what wusses do.
That's
God
not the
bless America.
Russia, Metro. Russia would just be Metro. It would just play Metro and think that it's Russian Fallout. Weren't both sides evil? Well, that's where they try to play up. Yeah, is that the American side was evil? It had just given into its own greed and corruption to the point where it knew. But that's the thing is, if both sides are evil, why would I just want to visit? No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other major population centers that would actually be interesting. I don't really know where you go. Maybe Seattle, up in the Northwest. But...
I don't know how well developed it would be at the time. You don't play Fallout games to get the impression the U.S. government was all that great, to be fair. Oh, yeah, no, they were evil. I admit it. They were evil. The U.S. government was the worst part of it because they were totally into... I mean, they were the ones who contracted out Vault-Tec.
They were manifesting their destiny all over that goddamn world.
Yeah.
Buffalo. An irradiated Niagara.
That would be cool.
We have to purify Niagara.
That'd
be interesting. Or it's all dried up, and you're like, where the fuck did it go?
Then you can include a whole bunch of fucking references from the late 1950s when the entire world was
San Francisco. I mean, there's another big city.
Well, that was Fallout 2.
Was it?
Yep, Fallout 2 it had San Francisco.
Could just go back.
No, you really couldn't.
Because you can't go home.
You can't go back.
Can't go home. Yeah, I'm really trying to think.
Yeah, I would go with somewhere Midwest. I would definitely go with somewhere with Midwest. You can try to go on a coastline again, but the problem is if you go with coastline again, you're just going to fall into the same problem of we're going to make half the map water and unplayable. So we're having our map size.
Welcome to Fallout Lincoln, Nebraska. Abolish slavery in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, what is the let's see, you could go with Fallout Hoboken.
New Jersey.
Fallout Hoboken, New Jersey.
Actually, that is a big one. We have not done Fallout New York.
That's what somebody else said.
I honestly think that's where. Yeah, Paris, Texas.
Correct.
The good news is we're sending
Athens,
you. No.
Georgia.
The good news is, my boy, we're sending you to Paris, France. That's the bad news.
Or you can send them to Atlanta. That'd be interesting.
So you want to talk about confusing? There is a Nashville, North Carolina, and there's also an Asheville, North Carolina.
That's not the confusing one. The confusing one is that there are two counties. There's Franklin County and Henderson County. In Franklin County is Franklin.
Yes.
And Henderson. It's Franklinton and Henderson. And in Henderson County, there's Franklin and Hendersonville. It makes no sense. It's literally a divergence. Actually, if I remember right, Franklin is not in Henderson County, but it doesn't fucking matter.
If they did it in Detroit last place, it would have to be a version of Detroit that is not our version of Detroit. It would be still.
Oh yeah, no, it would be an idyllic, super like what the pit was effectively, but larger. What state doesn't have a Springfield in it? There's a few.
So the problem with places like Detroit is that you ideally want to pick a location that anyone across the country can associate with. Most of us don't know dick about Detroit.
Yeah.
People outside of Michigan don't know anything about it other than Motor City and lead in your water.
Motown?
Yeah, Motown.
I mean, yeah. I feel like that would be, you could definitely live off of that. I mean, I feel like that's what you would kind of go with. You have Motor City, Motown, and that's it. But it would be a massive metropolitan center, so where you wouldn't actually have much arid desert outside of the metropolitan center, which would be interesting. Like it's set within a full city world space.
Welcome to Fallout, Birmingham, Alabama.
Detroit Fallout would either run city that wasn't bombed or a city that was improved by the bomb. Well, I mean, if it was hit now by a bomb, it would improve.
Yeah. There'd finally be federal relief money going in there. Womp, 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 womp.
Oh, God.
I mean, who cares when Yellowstone finally goes? The whole Midwest is just gone.
I actually looked at a map, and where we are is right at the edge of the yellow zone, so we're good, but we probably have to move.
What about Fallout Oceania, where it's a whole world built around the ocean?
Weren't we always at war with Oceania? Some random cruise ship lost at sea. That could be really cool as a starter point, but I don't see how far you would get with it because it would just be the ship. If Fallout, but Area 51, I mean, that would be more plain ugly desert.
Fallout Mexico City, where the bombs were dropped on Dia de los Muertos, where people dressed in skeleton makeup have become ghouls.
Ooh, really interesting.
Yeah.
And knowing what little I know about Mexican culture, they'd be totally for it.
And you can eat nasty breads covered in sugar that pretend to be desserts.
We can do that now.
Yeah. It's not a sweet roll. It's a stale roll.
I actually had Mexican candy. I regret having Mexican candy.
Well, you're like, oh, that's a little sweet. And you're like, God damn it, there's chili pepper in this.
It's like, why is it bitter?
And salt. And salt. Everything is full of salt. Yeah. So, I mean, so what I'm saying is Bethesda, come at me, bro. I just gave you a great idea. Yeah, Mexico City.
That'd be interesting.
With your skeleton ghouls.
Yeah. It would kind of look like Far Cry 2.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you could actually have like a group of people that have like gone, like reverted back to Aztec traditions.
And they're fighting the Roman Catholics. Wait, this is getting way too fucking topical.
Yeah. And then they charge you for indulgences. But they're just blowjobs. There's never been a glory hole in a Fallout game.
True. Get on it, internet. What am I kidding? They're already on it.
Get on it, K-Cat.
Oh. That's the connotation of glory hole and somebody getting on it. That just kind of went in a completely different direction. Australia, that's Mad Max. Yes, it is. I mean, you could actually think of Mad Max as Fallout in Australia.
Oh, man. Who's ready for Fallout Dubai?
Oh, yeah, I already played that. Spec Ops: The Line.
Yeah, right. Yeah, nobody's mentioned Africa. Racist.
Because there's nothing in Africa.
Oh.
I mean, come on. There's St. Johannesburg, and that's it.
Filthy zebra lands. What about Egypt? They had something like 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, they don't have anything now.
Yeah. Well, it's because the Jews left. I don't know where we go from here.
You know how you keep them in? You know how you keep them in? A great, big, beautiful wall.
That's what, instead of building pyramids, they should have just built a goddamn wall.
Fallout Israel.
Israel knows about walls. I do have to say, I love, however you feel about Trump or not, I don't care, but there's this picture of him at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, and it says, I'm going to build you a big, beautiful brother.
Oh, God. Okay.
Something about that tickled my funny bone.
Okay. So,
what is it with this guy and walls? Yeah, I sent you the picture of like The Onion did of Air Force One with redesign.
Marble,
gold. Oh, God, how fucking ridiculous.
And now that we have reached the point where we're starting to go into modern politics, we are not going to do that because, holy crap, that's a minefield.
Love you guys and gals and personas.
He just learned about those, apparently.
I did not just learn about it. It's just
you haven't shut up about them.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. I just like the word.
Just wait until I introduce you to the concept of pop-your-fur.
Oh no. Pony sonas?
Pony sonas. Okay. So, good night from Chris and
Robert.
And we will see you guys the next time that we see you.
To quote Dr. Nick, bye, everybody.
Bye.